YouTube. We decided to make a little trip out here to the Lumber River State Park. And which one are we at, sir?
The chalk banks.
They call it the chalk banks access because often the banks from this river leave like a chalk-like look. And we got a picture of the river. Excuse me. But there's your dark river. It's dark, it's a black water. And it's the only black water river in North Carolina that has the national recognition of wild and scenic black water river. 115 miles of shoreline the state park covers, but it's sectional. Like this is Chalk Banks, the smaller section of the state park. The other location's an hour away. The Princess Anne, it's named after a town that's no longer around, that grew up around the Lumber River. This actually flows into South Carolina, right across the border in South Carolina, into the Little PD River, and then into the PD, and then the Atlantic Ocean. All right, so there's that dark look is definitely for real. But hey, this is private property right over here. We're at the far end of the state park. We also found more bat boxes. We've been seeing them at certain places. That's a bat box. There's several. It's breezy today too. There's several bat boxes here at the Lumber River. But anyway, we just wanted to come out and check this out. It's not as popular as some of the other state parks. There are some hiking trails, but there's no significant mileage ones. You might get 3-4 miles out of this probably. And then the bank has eroded drastically. The river floods a lot, but it has eroded a lot because you can see that these chalk banks have pretty much collapsed in the distance. And this is a kayak access point. You can bring your own kayak or probably have to arrange a trip locally for shuttle service, or bring your own kayak or canoe. That water is real dark. The chalky looking banks, like I say, it has eroded. It does flood some. Bowfin are in here, pickerel, redbreast, largemouth bass. So anyway, we're going to check this one out. It has a nice picnic area out here. A lot of cypress trees on the banks. And Spanish moss. They call it, if you kayak through this river, they call it like a jungle cruise, because you're isolated, secluded, and you see all this cypress trees and Spanish moss. We don't see a lot of that in this section here, but there are some as we walk down. We're going to fish a little bit, see what happens, and then we might drive to the other location too. Fishing right now, guys, just for fun. You can camp here at the Lumber River State Park. You can reserve and camp, and they have paddle in camping as well for paddlers that paddle in and want to camp. But we're going to check this place out a little more detail, and then get you a better look at this chalky. It's not chalky, this tea water. Look at that. And they're right, it's like a mirror that reflects some trees right off of it. And then the banks, you can tell they've eroded a lot over time. That's the kayak access point. And why they call it Lumber River, it grew up in the 1700s. It was used, well, prior to that, Native Americans used it as a way of life, fishing it, hunting it, and developing communities around it. And then you had the 1700s timber industry, for the shipping industry took off, and they needed timber. Logs and trees were as wide as a man is tall, massive logs. They would float them in the Lumber River for transportation, therefore the Lumber River. Then you have a conspiracy theory online. You know what they say is it used to be called the Drowning River. The headwaters to this day are still called, up in North Carolina, are still called the Drowning Creek. Then it comes in, forms the Lumber River. They changed the name from Drowning River to Lumber River over time, but Drowning River, they used to say, or online conspiracies, wow, bodies are buried in here. It's a dumping ground for bodies and murders and stuff. But we found no proof that that is true. but little conspiracy theory. And then you have the Lowry gang. We did some research on that. The Lowry gang is true. This guy was a Lumberton Indian in him, and he had a black guy in his gang, and he was in the 1800s, and there were several members of his gang, and they would rob the rich, give to the poor. And what did him in, nobody knows, because his last robbery in the 1800s was he robbed the sheriff safe somewhere out toward the Lumberton area and got $28,000. Back then that was a ton of money. So they robbed the sheriff, the local sheriff out that way, and took $28,000. Then that got a bounty on him for $12,000. Now back then $12,000 was a hunk of change. The bounty was never collected. His body's never been found. Rumors are he disappeared right after that robbery. Some say he got a self-inflicted wound by accident from cleaning a double-barrel shotgun. Others say he disappeared, died elsewhere, and some say he lived years later and was seen from time to time after that, but no one knows for sure. So what happened to the ringleader of the Lowry gang? We don't know. But other members, when he disappeared, were captured and killed in his gang. And then his wife was a wild character too, apparently. I think his name was Henry Lowry. But we'll touch on that if we make it out to the Princess Anne location, because there's actually a historical marker with his name and talks about the Lowry gang out there, out that way. And in town, Pembroke, right outside there, there's that historical marker's there. The Lowry gang, the Robin Hood of the 1800s. Chalky looking dirt along the bank, therefore chalk banks is kind of the name. So yeah, kind of like the chalky soils, but yeah, don't come out here when there's heavy rains. The river can flood and be up over these trails a lot of times. But we're going to march our way down this little orange trail. It runs all by the river. Oh yeah, it's a good look at it. Cypress tree. Talking about the logs, how big they are, that's an example of one that's on the side here at the chalk banks access. Look how big that thing is and how wide. Here, stand next to that thing real quick. I mean, that's see? That's a pretty big log. Pretty good. He's standing next to it, and it's big. Yeah, big wide log. They would float these down. And then a lot of owl boxes, bat boxes out here. The cypress trees are kind of cool to see. And that dark, dark black water. Another bird box thing. But the docks on the the kayak in or paddle in, you know, those docks on those paddle in campsites are pretty much ruined by floods, so they haven't rebuilt those. But you can still camp here and paddle in as far as I know. But that water's dark. Look at that. I mean, it's true. It's like a mirror. And the chalky banks, that's another true thing. And you get a lot of these stumps, cypress stumps, I guess. More of those trees, tall cypress trees. Oh, this sandbar is underwater, but this is a pretty cool sandbar out here at the river. Another angle of it looking back that way. Walking through the cypress trees. while we're fishing. A little bit different scenery. There's your cypress trees. Look at that. And there's the coffee water. Camp out here, just dip your cup in and warm it up, and there you got you a coffee. Good look at those cypress trees. Another paddle in camp area. So yeah, if you're ever out this way, the Chalk Banks access of the Lumber River State Park, it's worth a stop just to visit, but you won't need much time out here on this section. You know, hour or two the most, and then you can move on to something else. All right guys, we're still fishing to see if we can catch anything. Pictures often on Google Images. There's your Chalk Banks. It has eroded over the time. That chalk looking color. The state park over there. What do you think, man? You'll fish that spot. Yeah, man. So again, it's a place to stop by, we did our lunch here, did a picnic lunch, and explore this section. This is the smaller part of the state park and the newest part. There's a bench, homemade bench. There you have it, guys. Chalk Bank access. And excuse me, across the river is a platform. Paddle in, camping's allowed. A couple of those. The cypress trees are cool to see. The chalky banks, it's kind of neat. And this dark color river is our first blackwater river that we've actually fished. So we did that. Didn't have much luck here today. We're going to go to Princess Anne location, and we'll hit you up there and do some highlights of that one. We'll see Griffin's Whirl. That's the unique reverse flow of the river in the eddy out there. We want to see that and just see what else we can find and see if there's any fishing out that way before we call it a day for this trip. Guys, we're at this massive tree, but check it out. Where are we at today?
At the Princess Anne access.
Yeah, Princess Anne access. We made it. The second access for the state park of the Lumberton River. The river now is much wider here in this section, and it's a lot more narrow out toward Chalk Banks. But look at that tree, how big it is. It's massive when you stand beside this tree. I mean, look at that thing. That's a massive tree. But what's cool about that Spanish moss that's hanging, it's right here at the park. I don't know if you picks it up or not, but the Spanish moss kind of hanging down. Mossy like substance. So Princess Anne, 1700s town, is what it's named after. It was built on, we're getting ready to go to Griffin's Bluff. It's a little trail that goes down to Griffin's Bluff, and that's where the town was built. And then just beyond that is a feature called Griffin's Whirl, and that's the deep part of the river. It's a little eddy, and it has actually a rare formation or currents, reverse river flow. So we'll check that out in a few minutes. But this nice gravel trail here, compared to Chalk Banks, this river is big, real wide through here. So this is where Princess Anne would have been, along the river banks, probably through this area. And real pretty. Alright, I'll keep filming briefly because we're getting ready to hit the boardwalk. A lot of squirrels out today. So you're not going to get your high mileage hiking, but you will get, there's several trails. If you do them all, you'll get several miles in here and then a little bit at the other location. So here is the boardwalk. And then Griffin's Bluff, if we're walking through it, that's where the town would have been. And massive logs will float down this river. Massive. I mean, because back then the trees were huge. And they were clear cutting. The river's right over there. And Princess Anne formed because of timber industry. And they were built on the river so they could be part of that. And all the logs will float down the river to the various sawmills. There was a mill nearby. The town had one.
That's a big fight.
Big trees down in here. It's probably not picking up good on this. What was that? So yeah, nice little gravel trail. When I get to that point, I'll show you. Here's a unique feature here at the park. If you come, I'm not lying, they built this platform out here. And there you have it. The river, I don't know if it's picking it up, but look at Spanish moss hanging out of the trees. And the river's going through here and up. But this eddy goes back here. This huge eddy creates reverse flow. We're actually seeing it with our eyes. Yeah. It's creating a whirl and it's going in reverse. Now this is a deep section of the river right here. They're saying it's probably, it can be 8 to 10 foot deep at all times or more in this whirl. Otherwise, the river's averaging, depending on, you know, rain and all, it's probably, spots are 3 feet to 4 to 5 feet deep. So it's not an incredibly deep river. All of them have pockets. Now, this is unique. Reverse flow here. We see a water snake, it's not going to pick it up with this.
I wish it would.
But he's there going to that tree, little water snake. Yeah. Speaking of this eddy, there's one at Eno River State Park, the Hobbit Hole, but there's no reverse flow there. It's just an eddy that creates a deep pool that people like to swim in and jump in. It's called the Hobbit Hole at Eno River State Park. We've seen that and it's on our channel. But the river goes that way. It kind of makes this curve as it comes down and goes in, and a nice huge eddy here. That's a really cool feature to see with your own eyes. Hey, every once in a while you'll see a hiking sign that's so old that the trees eat it. There's an example of one. Now this, guys, this is a creek that runs through the property. It's the Mill Hole Trail. Because remember, back then, all your towns on the rivers, they usually had mills of some type. Grist mills and whatever, sawmills, different things. So we're gonna go see what this is about real quick while we're here. And then we're going to hopefully fish the river and catch something out of it today. Get out, guys.
Old grist stones.
Hey, we have them back home.
Yep. They used to turn them around, I guess, by a donkey or something.
Those were from the mill. We have those in Random. We live in central North Carolina in Random, and we have grist, those all throughout our town because of the mills that were present along the deep river. And here's a look at that creek that runs through the area of what would have been in the mill. And they got the grist stones here. Another look at that.
Found the mill hole right there.
Yeah, this wide area back here on this creek comes from the Lumberton River. They
Dug it out.
I guess they created this flow from the Lumber River back into here, and the mill would have been right here in that big hole. They had a big mill back here. Because the creek is black because it comes straight from the water from the river. And the old mill was here on the property. And then, of course, I don't know what they thought about Griffin's World back then, what they would have called it. But I'm sure that was a neat feature. And another look at some cool scenery. Hi guys.
All of this here was the old town of Princess Anne.
This is Griffin's Bluff on top. It's got a little paved trail but in the picnic area, but all that was Princess Anne. The town of Princess Anne you're looking at. And show them what's up next. We talked about the river.
Ancient log that used to ship down river. This one's too big for the saw, so they gave it away.
So yes, this is a log that demonstrates the size of the trees that they would have floated on the Lumber River. And then this one was too big to move and couldn't fit in the sawmill blades. And the saying is, the log is wide as a man is tall. It comes from back then how big the trees were. They were using for timber industry blowing up in the 1700s. For why? For shipping. There's an example of one that's donated to the park. It is massive.
That's cool. You can see how big it used to be back then. They were all like
it's
that.
fenced in, right, you know, and everything, but if you look at this thing, let me go on the other side to get my shadow out of this thing. It is massive. To walk this log. So that's the one, there's a fence here that was donated to give an example. It's huge. So trees were massive that they were doing timber with.
Probably waist.
And I'll stand back. I mean, look at that's just crazy how big it is.
Up to your waist and thick.
And then staying right in front of it in the middle post there. Just to give you an idea, I mean, that's pretty massive. I'm out here now to miss this log up here. But just to finish it up, just to tell you about it was found just north of Boardman, North Carolina, near the Lumber River. And it says it was originally cut into a 16-foot section and rolled into a canal. It's too heavy to float, too big to be moved. It laid there 100 years. Eventually it was dug up, hauled to a nearby sawmill to be sawed into boards. Once at the mill, however, it was found to be too large for the saw blade. It remained at the mill until 1997 when it was donated to the Lumber River State Park for display purposes. So now it's 100 years old plus more, and then since 1997 it's been here. But that's a cool find to give you that aspect, but I mean it's massive. Interesting here, tell them.
Man-made bat cave. Check it out.
They use this for studies for bats. We asked the visitor center about that. There's a special bat they're analyzing, and they test its droppings and stuff, and they monitor them. But that's created for bat studies. We would have known that if we didn't ask the visitor center. Also, what we found out, guys, newsflash, they're building a third location for the Lumber River State Park system. And it's going to open up not too long down the road. They're building a nice visitor center for them as well at this third location. I forgot what she said it's going to be, but so somewhere nearby there's going to be a third location. We're going to hit the river and do some fishing, and then we're going to wrap it up and close it at the river, hopefully with some Spanish moss views. We've already seen 2 water snakes out here at the river. But anyway, we'll catch you at the river and then we'll wrap it up there. That's what's cool about this place, all these cypress trees and what you got. That's what you need. It does have an advisory out that you cannot eat any fish out of here. We read a sign about that. All right, we're going to fish a little bit and check out this beautiful cypress trees and that Spanish moss hanging, and soak up some of that scenery for a few minutes before we close. The warning sign basically just says largemouth bass and bowfin, also named blackfish, in the Lumber River have higher than normal levels of mercury. Consumption of bass and blackfish should be limited to no more than 2 meals per person per month. that kind of thing. So yeah, so got some mercury issues with the largemouth bass and blackfish, aka bowfin. Nothing racist about it, by the way. If you're offended, it's on you. It's called blackfish because it comes out of this black water, the river here. So, and it usually makes their pigment black. So it's called blackfish. Something's wrong with this thing. Hold on. There you have it, guys. We finally caught a fish out of the Lumber River. We went to Worms and got a red breast. So yes, that's red breast up in here. Fish number 1 caught.
Shit.
Our second fish.
Yep.
There you have it. Another one of these beautiful, some sort of a,
Don't show that side of this. Check that.
nice. What do you think, man?
Got them good.
Even though they're not big, we've got 2 fish now out of the Lumber River.
Number 3.
Fish number 3. So we got some panfish coming out of here now.
This is not a red breast.
Yeah,
But that's something.
so we won't let him go. That's the fish number 3 for us. We're closing out from Lumber River State Park. So the Princess Anne access, much wider rivers flow through here, really wide compared to the chalk banks, and a lot of fishing access on the bank. Kind of a quiet park. We're closing it here on Griffin's Whirl, and we caught 3 fish out here. Nothing to brag about, but hey, we caught something. Fishing's been kind of tough lately with the cold mornings we've been having. So look up the Lowry gang, do your research on that, see what y'all think. That's a pretty interesting story out this way, and his name is Henry Lowry. And then hope you enjoyed the video and adventure for today, and we'll catch you on the next one, guys. Peace out.